congregation, there was a teacher there who was an ordained pastor, and she knew I had dyslexia, and she gave me some tips and hints, so I'm going to try that today. And because, honestly, this is the last job I'm ever going to have. After this, amen, being a pastor, this is it. So I'm going to try to master this craft that God gave me. All right. Today we're going to talk about what to do when you're living in a land of hopelessness. Hopelessness is all around us. If we look at our country now, we can say our country is a country of hopelessness. Yeah. When we look at different things, we see that hopelessness can come in many forms. There could be financial hopelessness, where you say, I can't make it day to day with the money I'm making. There could be relationship hopelessness, where you've been out there trying to wait for God to send you somebody, but the date is not even there. They're not even calling. There could be all kinds of hopelessness that goes around that just makes you feel like there's no way out. Hopelessness is defined as going down a road but can't see a way through. It's like watching the weather, and the weatherman said it's going to storm all day, every day. There's no chance of lighting up. Wow. Hopelessness. We look at this in different ways, but everybody goes through hopelessness. Sure. Everybody has the chance of feeling like there's no way out. Hopelessness is almost like the fireworks on the 4th of July. It brightens up for a little bit, then it turns dark again. Yeah. Hopelessness, you feel like you can't see much of tomorrow. But I want to tell you something right now. God's people even go through hopelessness. When we look in Jeremiah, you got to understand, Jeremiah is a bad book that don't have a lot of good news. God's people went through hopelessness here. Yeah. One of the reasons they were going through hopelessness because God was disciplining them for their sins. When you look at verse 4, it says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to whom were carried away into captivity." So God allowed his people, his promised people, to get captured because of their sins. So they were going through a stage of discipline. God said, I have to discipline you because of your sins against me. And as you will know, when you get spanked by daddy, it don't feel too good. The other reason they're in captive, but they're also in a foreign land. Later on in verse 4 it says, to who I carried away from Jerusalem to Babylon. Well, we have to look at Babylon. Babylon was not a great place. Not for God's people. Yeah. God had a reason for everything he done. So he made them, number one, get captive. Number two, he took them from their homeland to another homeland. The last part, God wanted them to know at that time they wasn't even getting help from the church. When you look at this, it says in verse 8, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let your prophets and your dividers who are in the midst of deceive you, nor listen to their dreams, which you cause dreamed. For they prophesy falsely. In my name have not sent them, said the Lord of hosts. So here's a group of people who, number one, got sent in captivity. Number one, went into another land. They're feeling hopeless, and they can't even go to the church to get home. They were under discipline. They were hopeless in a situation, and they didn't see any way out. Hopelessness causes us to do weird things. Yeah. I remember when we lived in Galesburg, we were driving, and they cut off a street because a man had a firearm, and he was ready to take his life, so they cut the whole street off. When you get to that point, it's hopelessness. When you get to that point where you see nowhere out, when you get to that point where you can't find anything good in your life anymore, you're in a state of hopelessness. But I tell you, God has a plan for everything. God has a plan when we don't even see the plan. It's hard to understand God's plan because we're not God. But God has a plan. When it looks like darkness all around you, God is always doing something. I know most of you guys have memorized this verse. But Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plan that I have towards you, said the Lord. Plan of peace, not evil, to give you a future of hope." I'm going to read that again. "For I know the plan that I have for you, said the Lord of hosts. Plans of peace, not evil, to give you a future of hope." So even though we don't see it, God knows it. So if this sermon is catching you in a place of hopelessness, hold on, because God is doing something. God said, "I have a plan for you." But the best part when you read this is the plan for your future, not your past. Yeah. We can be in a place right now and say it's dark here, but joy comes in the morning. God has a plan for your future. You might not see it now, but the day is going to come when the sun is going to come up and you're going to see God's plan for you. You need to know it feels not like home because God has sent you a different way, but He has a plan for you. So I need you to take this. The only way God can send you through it, He got to send you to it. Amen. If you don't go to it, you can't go through it. Amen. Now, we might say, "What's the plan? I don't see the plan. I'm looking for the plan of God." But we have to understand, God is saying, you got to look at my track record. People have been where you're at. You got to look at my track record. When you don't see a way through, Moses didn't see a way through when he was at the Red Sea and the Philistines behind, the Egyptians behind him. But God had a plan. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't see a way through when they were in that fiery furnace until He turned it into a heck of a good time on a dance praise. Daniel did not see a way through when he was in the lion's den until they were not hungry that night and he survived in the morning. The disciples didn't see a way through when Jesus hung on that cross and died. They wouldn't hid until 3 days later He came from the grave. Yeah. So God got to send you to it in order to send you through it. Amen. The thing is, in this verse, God just don't say, "I have plans for you." He's saying, "I know the plans for you." Sometimes we want to know what God is thinking when God said it's not your time yet. I understand that being human and going through hopelessness is not an easy thing to do. We have been there before. But I tell you, every last word God has spoke to us came through. And we are better people because we went to it before God put us through it. Amen. We have learned so many things that God had planned for us. And it's just like the Egyptians, because he said, I got to send you away because when I call you home again, you never want to leave again. And it was in 1947 that Israel became its own state. They have not left again. Yeah. So God had to send them through it in order to see them through it. Said it wrong, but oh well. We got to look at a lot of things. God is saying, I have a plan for you. You got to wait for the plan that I have for you. You have to sit there and keep on doing what you're doing. Don't give up hope in a state of hopelessness. That's hard to do. When you feel like tomorrow will never come, it's hard to keep on taking that next step. But the question I have for you today, what do you do while you're waiting on God's plan? What do you do while you're standing in the land of hopelessness? What do you do when you're waiting on God? Well, I tell you, verse 5 tells us, build homes and dwell in them. Plant gardens and eat their fruit. Take wives and have sons and daughters. And then take wives for your sons and give your daughters to your husband, so that they may bear sons and daughters, that you may be increased there and not diminished. And seek the peace of the city where I have caused you to be carried off to in captivity, and pray to the Lord for it. For in the peace you will have peace. So what is God saying here? In other words, don't complain when you're in the land of hopelessness. Don't go in your room and draw your shades down and say, I got to wait it through. That's not what God said to do. He said, keep on living while you're in the land of hopelessness. Be a deliverer for someone who needs to be a delivered. Be hope to somebody who needs to be helped through. Be a blessing for someone who needs to be blessed. God never told us to stop doing what he commanded us to do, even if we're in a place of hopelessness. Amen. While we're waiting on God to bless us, we need to make sure our ministry is to bless other people. Amen. We can't wait until God comes again. We have to continue to set the ministry forth again. God has commanded us so many times. He said, go ye therefore and teach all nations. He didn't say only teach them in the good times. He didn't say only teach them in the good places. He didn't say only teach them when you feel like teaching them. He said, go ye therefore. That means all times. We got to teach all nations about the gospel. The funny thing is, there's a word that is in verse 7. And then also in verse 11. And it says, seek the welfare of the city. Welfare. And that's the word peace. While you're waiting on peace, help others find their peace. Yeah. While you're waiting on God to show up, let God work for you to help someone else. It's hard being a Christian these days. The first word people want to say, I'm offended. Yeah. You're talking about Christ, I'm offended. You're talking about this man that you've never seen, I'm offended. My thing is keep on talking. They think we're crazy anyway. Keep on talking about Christ. But the thing is, God has sent me not to be quiet anymore. God has sent me to go and spread the gospel. And that's what he's telling all of us. Sometimes we feel hopeless in our situation. Sometimes we feel like we don't make a difference in our situation. Sometimes we feel like throwing in a towel in our situation. But God is saying, hold on. Hold on. I'm coming again. Hold on. Hold on to my words. Hold on to my hand. Cinderella. And I know my analogies are weird. But hold on, it'll get to a point. There's a person that has evil stepmother and evil stepsister. They make her do all the work, all the heavy labor. They make her do the cleaning and the cooking. They make her do everything, and in that particular time, in that particular place, she feels hopeless. Nothing's going to change. There was a ball. She wasn't even allowed by her mother and her sisters to go to the ball. But there was a fairy godmother that said, do you want to go to the ball? And she said yes. So by a miracle, she got changed up and went to the ball. Yeah. There she met Prince Charming. They had a good time. But ain't it like it always when things are going good, the clock strikes midnight? So the place she thought she was going from, she had to go back to. But see, there was a difference. Even though she was still sweeping, she was still cleaning, she was doing it dancing and singing. Because she knew who she met. And meeting him didn't change her situation, but meeting him changed how she seen her situation. Prince Charming said he would do anything to see her again. But I'm telling you right now, before you knew Jesus Christ, you had an evil stepmother, evil stepsisters, Satan and his dominions. And they were making you do all the heavy work. They were making you feel hopeless in the place. But there was something called the Holy Spirit that introduced you to the Prince of Princes and the King of Kings that said, I would do anything to make you come to me again. That's what he did. We might go back into our situation, but knowing Jesus Christ, we see things different in our situation. We don't feel so hopeless anymore. We know that God is going to lead us through as he took us to. We know he didn't come down here in vain and died for nothing. We know God is going to carry what he said he was going to carry. It's time for us to realize hopelessness is just a state of mind. When you are in Jesus Christ, you're never hopeless. When you are in Jesus Christ, you're never helpless. When you are in Jesus Christ, things might look down through our eyes, but when we put on the goggles of the Bible, we see everything clearly now. That is, Jesus Christ is coming again. We might feel like we're depressed. We might feel like we're down and out. We might feel like nothing is going right. But my God said, one day soon, he's coming back again for me. He's not coming like he did the first time from a virgin, but he's coming back the second time on a white horse with a flaming sword to make sure I go back to heaven with him. I'm done shouting for today. Matt said something. If you're having a problem, come down to the altar. If you're in a state of hopelessness, come down to the altar. God is waiting. See, God is a gentleman. He's never going to come in where you don't ask him to. If you need something right now today, these altars are going to be open.